I received $50,000 in back pay. I rushed home 2 hours early to surprise my husband. When I walked in, I heard him planning my divorce. That part didn't happen all at once. It just feels that way now. Let me back up. My name is Joanne Caldwell. I'm 42 years old. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I used to run operations for a regional logistics company until they decided I was no longer a cultural fit. That's corporate language for we're cutting you loose and hoping you won't fight. I fought. 8 months of paperwork. 8 months of calls. 8 months of feeling like I was begging someone to admit I wasn't crazy. That Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting in a coffee shop in the North Loop. The place smelled like burnt espresso and wet wool coats. My phone buzzed. Email from the Minnesota Department of Labor. Final determination. I opened it. $38,000 unpaid performance compensation, $7,000 in damages, $5,000 in accrued interest, total $50,000 in back pay. I just stared at the number in my banking app. $50,000? Not a bonus. Not a gift. Mine. Money they should have paid me before they walked me out. I didn't cry. Honestly, I felt tired more than anything. Tired and vindicated at the same time. If you've ever had your name dragged through a conference room, you know what that feels like. I thought about the mortgage on our place in Edina. Heating bills that spiked every winter. The months Garrett said, "We'll figure it out," but didn't really look at the numbers. I left the cafe 2 hours early. I bought a bottle of Cabernet on Hennepin. Not fancy, but not cheap either. I wanted to walk in and say, "We're going to be okay." I rehearsed it in the car like an idiot. When I stepped into the house, it was quiet except for Garrett's voice upstairs. He sounded calm, controlled. I heard my name. I moved closer to the staircase without meaning to. The wood creaked under my shoe. He didn't notice. "If we file next week," he said, "the 50 becomes leverage." I froze. I hadn't even told him about the money. I stood there with the bottle still in my hand, listening to my husband negotiate my future like it was a business contract. Garrett's voice was steady, calm in that boardroom tone he uses when he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. "The balance hit today," he said. $50,000. It's in the joint access account we use for the mortgage. As long as it sits there until the snapshot, we're golden. Her account, not ours. I leaned against the wall so my knees wouldn't give out. "The refinance review is Thursday," he continued. "I just need liquidity verified. Once that's done, we file. Timing matters." A pause. Then softer. "No, she doesn't know yet." That part hit different. I heard a woman's voice through the phone speaker. Low and professional. Not emotional. Just clinical. "You're certain she won't move the funds before Thursday?" Garrett gave a short laugh. "She won't. She thinks we're rebuilding." Rebuilding. I looked down at the wine in my hand. I almost laughed too. "Honestly," he added. "And Sarah confirmed the bank won't question the reserve as long as it shows clean for 3 business days." Sarah. The name landed like a punch. Sarah Huxley, my former analyst. The one I defended during a compliance review. She works risk compliance now at a regional lending firm. I knew that. The woman on the phone spoke again. "If you file next week, the 50 becomes leverage during asset division." Garrett's answer came fast. "Exactly. Leverage." I hadn't even told him about the deposit. Then I remembered. The iPad in the kitchen drawer. The one we used for streaming. I logged into my bank app on it 2 years ago when my phone died. I never logged out. Push notifications, balance alerts. He didn't hack anything. He just watched. "I'll send over the draft," the woman said. "Good," Garrett replied. "Once the restructure is approved, we move forward." I stepped back before the stair creaked again. I didn't drop the bottle. I didn't storm upstairs. I walked out of my own house like I'd left something in the car, yeah? Then I got in and drove. I stopped at a red light on Lyndale and pulled up my bank app again. The balance was still there. $50,000. Clean. Untouched. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. I didn't drive far. I circled back once I saw Garrett's truck leave the driveway. I waited 2 blocks down like I was casing my own house. That part felt pathetic. Honestly, inside, everything looked normal. Same couch, same stupid throw blanket. I looked at the iPad. My instinct was to log out and change every password. But no, if I cut his access now, he'd panic and file for divorce before I could freeze the assets. I needed him to stay overconfident for 48 more hours. The bank app badge showed one notification. He'd opened it earlier. I could see the timestamp. Then I checked the email app. There it was. PDF attachment debt restructure proposal, personal guarantee. I opened it. 2 years ago, Garrett had personally guaranteed $180,000 for his distribution startup. I knew he'd taken a loan. I didn't know he'd signed it personally. The document laid it out plain. Current balance, payment history, delinquency warnings. Refinancing terms required proof of $50,000 in liquid reserves. He didn't need my money transferred. He just needed it to sit there long enough to screenshot and submit. My throat felt tight. If the refinance went through before any divorce filing, the debt would stabilize. On paper, the business survives. During asset division, that could get messy. If the company's value changes because of that restructure, I could be dragged into arguments about shared benefit. I scrolled further. An email chain. From Sarah Huxley, subject timing. Please ensure all liquidity requirements are satisfied prior to the Thursday review. As discussed, once the account snapshot is certified in the portal, our stability audit will be locked. My name was in the thread. Not copied. Referenced. Garrett replied, "She won't move it." "I'll handle it." I laughed once. It sounded wrong in the empty kitchen. This wasn't jealousy. Sarah worked risk compliance at the lending firm reviewing his loan. If Garrett stabilized, her department avoided a loss. This was alignment. Incentive. Clean and cold. I slid down against the cabinet and sat on the floor. I typed a message to him. "How long have you known deleted it?" Typed again. "Did you ever plan to tell me deleted that too?" My hands wouldn't stop shaking. "How did I miss this?" I muttered to no one. I stared at the PDF again. The refinance review was in 6 days. If I did nothing, he'd use my money to save his collapse. I met the attorney the next morning in a glass office tower downtown. Her name was Diane Keller, mid-50s. No nonsense. She skimmed the documents without small talk. "You're telling me he intends to use your $50,000 as liquidity for a refinance?" she asked. "Yes, and he hasn't filed yet, no." She nodded once. Timing is everything. I slid the printed PDF across her desk. The refinance proposal, the personal guarantee for $180,000, the review date, then Sarah's email, then the screenshots showing the iPad access and the balance alert timestamp, then the bank transfers to Garrett's mother. $22,000 over 4 months. Diane leaned back. Back pay for wrongful termination can qualify as personal compensation under Minnesota law. That helps you. That helps, I repeated. Though my voice sounded flat, but, she continued, if he secures refinancing before you file, disentangling the financial narrative gets harder. He'll argue the business stability benefited the marriage. So what do I do? You file first, she answered. Petition for divorce and request a temporary restraining order. We freeze the use of marital funds for collateral. The court will want proof of imminent financial harm. I have 6 days. Then we move today. I stared at the stack of paper between us. You don't have time to be emotional, she added. I swallowed. I already did that part. She gave me a thin smile. Good. We started drafting. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying one name. Sarah Huxley. The next morning, I went back through old files. 2 years ago. Sarah worked under me during a compliance audit. Smart, but sloppy. I'd written her up for incomplete documentation. I'd also defended her when senior leadership wanted her gone. I opened LinkedIn. She'd transferred into banking compliance last year. Same regional lending firm reviewing Garrett's loan. I called an old colleague, Nate, who still works in risk. Do you know Sarah Huxley, I asked. Unfortunately, he replied. Why is she handling distressed accounts now? Yeah, why are you asking? Just answer me. She's part of the review committee on small business restructures. My stomach tightened. I forwarded him the email chain I'd found. Garrett's message. Sarah's response. You need to act before she moves the funds. Nate went quiet. That's not standard language. He finally said, that's strategic. Strategic for who? For whoever benefits if the loan doesn't tank. There it was. If Garrett stabilized the $180,000 debt, Sarah's division avoided reporting a loss. Her performance numbers stayed clean. This wasn't personal jealousy. This was alignment. Calculated. I closed the laptop slowly and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. The refinance review was in 5 days, and suddenly I wasn't just fighting my husband. Garrett made pasta that night. Garlic and red sauce. The smell hit before I even set my bag down. He moved around the kitchen like nothing had shifted. I was thinking. He began, not looking at me. If we stabilize the loan this week, we get breathing room. I poured water into a glass. Breathing room for what? For everything, he answered. The company, the house, us. He set plates down. His hands were steady. There are 14 employees depending on me, he went on. 14 families. If this refinance goes through, we can reset. Reset, I repeated. He leaned against the counter. You know how this works. Liquidity shows strength. Strength gets approval. And after that, I asked. After that, we rebuild. We're a team. The word team sat there between us. His phone lit up on the counter. Loan officer. Confirming liquidity documentation. He flipped it face down without picking it up. You gonna answer that, I asked. It can wait. We ate in silence for a minute. Fork against plate. His jaw tight. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Is this Joanne Caldwell, a man's voice asked. Yes, this is Daniel Mercer with North Star Lending. We're reviewing a refinance application tied to your household. We need to verify liquid reserves totaling $50,000. I glanced at Garrett. He stared at me like I was a witness in court. I'm familiar with the account. I lied, keeping my voice steady for the recorder. I'll review the final authorization documents you sent over and get back to you by Thursday. A pause. Understood. Mercer answered. We'll follow up tomorrow. I hung up. Garrett's voice dropped. Why would you say that? Because I haven't seen anything. I answered. It's procedural. He snapped. You're overreacting. I am. He stood up straighter. You think I'm trying to hurt you? I held his gaze. I think you're trying to save yourself. He ran a hand through his hair. This isn't about me. It's about survival. For who he didn't answer that. His phone buzzed again under the table. I saw the reflection in the oven glass. He typed quickly, need signature before Thursday. 4 days. He looked up and forced a smile. We can talk through the paperwork tomorrow. Sure. I said, let's talk tomorrow. He relaxed slightly. Thinking he'd regained control, I took another bite of pasta. It tasted like nothing. He wasn't gleeful. He wasn't plotting for fun. He was desperate. And desperate men justify everything. I sat there across from my husband and realized something clean and simple. If I signed, I legitimized his refinance. If I didn't, this marriage was already over. I finished my water and stood up. I'm tired. I told him. He nodded. Like that settled it. Upstairs. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The refinance review was in 4 days, and I was done being leverage. I didn't tell Garrett where I was going the next morning. Diane already had the paperwork drafted when I walked into her office. You ready? She asked. No, I answered. But let's do it anyway. She slid the petition across the desk. Divorce filing. My name first. Then the motion for temporary restraining order. This asked the court to freeze use of marital funds for collateral, she explained. We're attaching everything. I watched her organize it. The refinance proposal for $180,000. The email from Sarah advising him to move before I shifted the funds. Screenshots showing the iPad access to my bank alerts. Records of $22,000 transferred to his mother over 4 months. Diane looked at me over the stack. This shows imminent financial harm. She said, that's what we need. And if the judge doesn't see it that way, then we argue harder. I signed. My hand shook once. Just once. I hated that it did. Diane noticed. You don't have to feel steady to act steady. I'm not trying to feel anything right now, I replied. She nodded. Good. We filed electronically before noon. Given the refinance review date, she added, the court should respond within 48 hours. Should, that word stuck. Garrett had no idea. He probably thought I was at the grocery store or running errands. Maybe he thought I was reviewing paperwork like a good partner. By the time I stepped outside, the wind cut through my coat. I barely felt it. 3 days before the review meeting, if the temporary freeze didn't reach North Star Lending before Thursday, his plan would move forward anyway. I checked my phone. No calls yet. The waiting had started. Thursday morning came faster than I expected. Garrett had dressed early, button-down shirt, the one he wears when he needs to look credible. He paced the kitchen with his phone in his hand. Reviews at 10, he muttered, more to himself than to me. I sat at the table with coffee I wasn't drinking. At 10:15, his phone rang. He answered on speaker without realizing. "Mr. Caldwell?" A man's voice began, steady and formal. "This is Daniel Mercer from North Star Lending. We've been notified of active domestic asset litigation connected to your household accounts." Garrett stiffened. "What does that mean?" "It means your application is suspended pending court clarification. We cannot proceed with the refinance at this time." "That's not possible," Garrett snapped. "The liquidity is there, sir. There's a temporary restraining order preventing the use of marital funds as collateral." Silence. "I was not informed of that," Garrett said slowly. "It was filed 48 hours ago." He ended the call without another word. He turned to me. "You filed." "Yes, you destroyed everything," he said, voice low but shaking. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" "I protected myself. You could have talked to me." "I tried," I answered. "You were already negotiating." He ran a hand down his face. "That loan keeps 14 people employed. You tried to use my $50,000 to save $180,000 in debt. It's not that simple." "It wasn't simple when you called it leverage." He stared at me like he didn't recognize who I was. The refinance was dead. Without restructuring, his loan remained unstable. The committee wouldn't revisit it until the litigation resolved. He walked past me and up the stairs without another word. The house felt different after that, quieter, and the real fight hadn't even started yet. The hearing was short, too short for everything it represented. Garrett sat across from me, hands folded like he was trying to hold something together. The judge flipped through the filings. $50,000 in back pay. She read, "Compensation for wrongful termination." Diane stood. "We argue it qualifies as personal compensation under Minnesota law." Garrett's attorney cleared his throat. "It was received during the marriage." The judge didn't look impressed. "Timing of receipt does not override nature of compensation." I felt something unclench inside me. Then came the transfers. $22,000 moved to a family member over 4 months. The judge noted, "No disclosure during initial filings." Garrett shifted in his seat. That was temporary support. For whom, the judge asked. He didn't answer that. Final ruling came steady and flat. The judge ruled the $50,000 as a personal injury award rather than marital wages, protecting it from the pool. And because the $22,000 secret transfers to his mother constituted marital waste, the business debt was assigned solely to Garrett as an offset. Marital assets divided equitably. No debt redistribution. Outside the courtroom, Garrett stopped walking. "You could have helped me," he muttered. "I didn't owe you my future," I replied. Later that week, I heard through Nate that Sarah's firm initiated an internal compliance review. Her expected promotion was suspended pending investigation. Garrett downsized within a month, sold equipment, cut staff. No one went to jail, nothing exploded. Things just shifted, and I walked out lighter than I had in years. 6 months later, I signed my first independent consulting contract at a folding desk in a small glass-walled office in Uptown. The client, a regional food distributor, sat across from me flipping through the proposal. "You're asking for $85,000 for 6 months." He said, "Yes, that's higher than we budgeted. Then adjust the budget," I replied. "You're losing twice that in process inefficiency every quarter." He studied me for a second. "You don't sound unsure." "I'm not." He signed. Just like that, I walked out of that meeting feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not revenge, not triumph, just steadiness. Garrett moved into a smaller rental in St. Louis Park, sold the company vehicle, downsized his staff. He still runs the business, just smaller now. We met once to finalize paperwork. "I never meant to hurt you," he said quietly. "I know," I answered. "You just meant to save yourself." He nodded. That was the most honest we'd been in a long time. Here's what I learned. And I'm not saying this like a motivational poster. I'm saying it because I lived it. When someone calls your future leverage, believe them. Love doesn't excuse strategy, and silence isn't loyalty. Protect your name, protect your numbers, protect your sleep. If you've ever ignored a red flag because it was inconvenient, I get it. Drop a comment if this hits close to home. 6 months ago, I rushed home to surprise my husband with good news. Today, I'm the one walking into a glass office, and the only person I'm looking to surprise is the woman in the mirror. And honestly, I'm still deciding what I want to build next.